Welcome back, my favorite game developers. In this video we are actually going to be completing the wave, starting new waves. Once we finish all of them, we have the option to open the doors. Don't open them yet, but we will. Unfortunately, because this might take a lot of time, I'm not going to demonstrate it in the intro, but feel free to watch the video. You will see that it is actually working. We made sure that it does. We always make sure that it does. Okay, so I think we are at a good point. So as you can see, you saw two enemies randomly spawning. The time has finished. Okay, so they spawned on the same position. We killed them, and we should see in the inspector that we've completed all the waves, which means we will open the doors. So let's not waste any more time and let's get started. Okay, so what is happening right now? First of all, I forgot to stage all of my files. I'm going to call it instantiate various types of enemies. This was the previous video, but now let's focus on what's happening in here. So you remember that in the last one we actually started completing waves, but not quite so much, because even though we finished a wave, you might have noticed that then again enemies start spawning. Why is that? Well, that's because obviously the wave countdown is still less than 0. We are going back to spawning, and well, obviously we are not going back to spawning, so we are always starting the coroutine again. So what do we need to do? We need to actually first of all start a new wave, and second of all we need to reset all of that and make sure that at the end we stop all the waves, we finished all the waves, we can open the door and so on. But not only that, we also in this video want to create several points from which the enemies will be spawning. So we have our hands full, let's not waste any more time. What should we be doing in here? First of all, I'm going to scroll down and create a new void start new wave. And what happened? And in here I'm going to say that as soon as we want to start a new wave, then we are going to set the state to the spawning states dot counting. So in here we are counting for the next wave, and the wave countdown will be equal to the time between waves. Oops, nope, not enemy search, the time between waves. And then in here we're going to check if the next wave plus 1 is equal to the waves dot length. So that means that we are on the last wave. If the next wave is the last one, then we are going to say .debug .log, and in here we'll say we've completed all the waves. And I just said something I believe isn't that true in here. And first of all, we need to add 2 equals to compare. When we add 1 equal, that means we are assigning. 2 equals is when we're comparing. And I said in here that the next wave is the last one. No, when I said next wave plus 1 equals wave dot length, that means that the next wave right here without the plus 1 is the last index. So next wave plus 1 is the size of the entire array, which is the waves dot length. So that means that we are currently on the last one, which means that debug.log says we've completed all the waves. And we'll just add a comment here. We can open the doors, get rewards, etc. Okay. And then once we finish, so if we're not on the last wave, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to say that the next wave plus plus. So plus plus. So we increase the next wave by 1. So now all we got to do is when we check for the enemies and update and the wave is complete, we are going to start a new wave. So I believe that's all that we need to do. So I'm going to go back into my game in here, and I'm going to say that any day now, please. So in the level manager, let's see, let's make sure that we don't have any problems, I'm going to change this to the, where are the enemies? Let's make this a bit smaller. Where are the enemy prefabs? Enemy. Okay, so we have the patrolling. Let's make sure that the first wave only has skeleton enemies, and we'll create a second wave in here, which is the, let's just call it eye wave, because we have the flying eyes, and we are going to have both of these be the cowardly, so we will know when we are in the next wave. So I'm going to save all of that. I'm going to check in here. Okay, time between waves. Let's run the game and see how that looks. So I'm going to run the game, and we should only see skeletons. Skeleton, there we go. Skeleton, there we go. So now when we kill them, we should only see flying crows after the 5 seconds. There we go, the flying crow, you can see it from behind these two, and they killed me. But everything seems to be working perfectly fine. As you can see, we are resetting the time. If we scroll down, if you didn't completely understand what's happening, let me just redo it once. So as soon as we start a new wave, we start counting down until we get to the next wave. Then the wave countdown is reset to the time between waves. So an update in here, we are going to remove time.delta time every single frame, which means that we are starting the new wave. Then we check, are we on the last wave? If we are, that means we've completed all the waves and we can open the door. Unfortunately, our enemies killed us before we had the chance to do so. But before we actually test this out, and make sure that it's working, this condition right here, let's first of all create several points from which the enemies can spawn, because as you can see, we don't really like having all the enemies meshed up together in one point and having them spawn. We want to have some kind of diversity. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to issue you a challenge to create spawn points for enemies. First of all, you need to create an array to spawn points. So of these spawn points, this should be of type transform, this array. Then you'll need to create the points in Unity and add them to the inspector, obviously on the level manager. Finally, when we spawn an enemy, choose a random spawn point and put them there. So I'm going to tell you to pause the video because for some reason my tongue isn't just working correctly. So I'll see you in just a bit. Hey, welcome back. So how did you get on with that? If I scroll up here and I create a serialized field of transform, which becomes an array of the spawn points, save that. And then I scroll down to the, let's see what we have in here. Oh, so where are we spawning the enemies? Right here, we can simply remove the debug. We didn't even use it once. So in here, what shall we do? Well, we shall first of all create a transform of obviously a variable of type transform, not the transform on the game object, for the spawn point. And hopefully this will be the last video where I have to say the word spawn, whatever it is. So between these spawn points, and in here I'm going to say random range between 0 and the spawn points dot length. So we are choosing a random spawn point, and in here, instead of using the transform of the game object, we'll use the spawn point, that the random spawn point that we got. So I believe it's pretty easy. If you didn't understand what's happening in here, we created obviously the spawn points that we'll be adding in Unity in just a bit. Then when we instantiate an enemy, beforehand we used to immediately put him on the level manager game object. We said that we don't want to do that, so what we do instead is we use the transform.spawn point. We create a random one using the array that we have up there, using a random.range from 0 to the spawn points.length, and then we set the enemy, we instantiate him on the spawn point, .rotation, we save that, we go back into Unity, and I'm going to create all the spawn points under the level manager since he's handling all of the spawning. So spawn points, and I'm going to create an empty spawn point 1, 2, 3. So I will have 3 spawn points. Let's make the scene a bit bigger. And in here, let's see, the first one will be here, the second one will be here, and the third one will be in here. So save all of that, back in level manager. Let's see what we have in here, the spawn points. Let's lock this down. Let's drag these spawn points right here. We save all of that. We run the game. And now we should see, as we are looking, so 3, 2, 1, there we go. So we spawned one here, then after 2 seconds, one is up there. So I'm going to try to kill all of them. And let's see the second wave. Okay, so they're dead. Wave countdown. Then we get one enemy, which is up here, a second enemy, which is down here, and then I'll try to kill them using the view on the scene, so I can catch them from a very far distance. So the cowardly enemy dies, and now we have a countdown. We can see right here that all the waves have been completed. If we double click, where is it? It's right here where we are going to be opening the doors, obviously in the next video, and creating also portals that will take us to another dimension. Actually, it's just another level. But anyways, you get the point. Let's stop the game. Let's stop Unity. Make sure to commit our changes, and I'm going to call this that the now we actually complete the waves restart. Commit those changes, and I'll see you in the next one. And if you're enjoying, this is about the end of the course, make sure to leave me a review. It helps me out a lot, and I'll see you in just a bit.